Hi there, my name's Michael. I'm a member of the Caritas education team, and we know that there are a number of Year 12 students that are about to or may have already started looking at an achievement standard, an assessment which is 90822, looking at a social action and how it's derived by or from ethical principles. And Caritas is quite often one of those social actions which is considered as an example. And so we thought to help people out, we'd make a little video. We might not be able to be with you in person as we normally would to share with you about the work of Caritas, but we wanted to make a short video for you to see so that you can find out a bit more about the work of Caritas to help you with your assessment. So hopefully that'll be useful. And if there's any questions you have, you can always let us know. And that will be perfectly fine. So what we're going to try and cover in about half an hour are the 3 C's. We're going to look at Caritas, sort of a really quick overview of Caritas work. We're going to look at the CST principles, Catholic Social Teaching Principles, in a very, very short glance. Then we're going to put those things together and we're going to look at how Caritas is living out Catholic social teaching in a range of different countries and contexts. And hopefully it will become very clear how Caritas and CST are very intricately linked. So in terms of a CST 101, let's give it a whirl. So you can see the logo there on the screen. We are the New Zealand Catholic Agency for Justice, Peace and Development, and we come under the big umbrella of the New Zealand Catholic Bishops' Conference. In terms of what Caritas actually means, if you've never heard the word Caritas before, it's a Latin word for love. Love for everyone, love for all. And we quite often say love in action. We can see an image here in India. This was during the sort of first wave of the pandemic last year. In terms of the work of Caritas, you can sort of break it down into 4 different aspects. There's advocacy, education, emergency relief, and also development. And so advocacy is all about trying to be a voice for those who might not have a voice. We say the voiceless. You will stand up for them, you'll represent them. And that could be talking to, the government, as you can see in that image there, putting in a submission, but always trying to stand up for those who are quite often forgotten, some of the most vulnerable people on the planet. Education, we're always trying to raise awareness and educate people around social justice issues that exist, whether or not they are, within New Zealand only or globally. Emergency relief is the one aspect to Caritas work which most people get, and they see it a lot, hear about it, and that's when there's a disaster, whether it's man-made or a natural disaster, and Caritas will respond to make sure that everyone has their basic needs met. And then development is that sort of thing which we spend probably the bulk of our time doing, and that is to partner with local communities and journey with them for years on end to make sure that they have the needs covered, they have their basic needs met. That is pretty much Caritas at a glance in terms of what we do. How long have we been doing it for? Well, in New Zealand, we've been around since about 1970, so more than 50 years. But globally, Caritas actually started way, way back in 1896. So we're talking more than 125 years. Started with this guy here, you can see there, Lorenz Werthmann. He's a priest, and he saw the need in Germany, and he started collecting secondhand items like clothes and toys, and he had some food, became a bit like a food kitchen, I guess, and he was able to look out for the needs of those around him. And from his example, the Caritas adventure, the Caritas way of life spread throughout the globe over many, many years. And so now we have a global network of Caritas agencies, more than 165 agencies with hundreds of thousands of people working with hundreds of thousands of volunteers to care for pretty much everyone across the planet. Every country, I think, has a link to Caritas, which is pretty cool. Second largest humanitarian network on the planet. In terms of where Caritas Aotearoa New Zealand is operating and working, we have the development projects in a number of these countries on the screen there, but we also have a number of connections because of that emergency relief. Places like Ukraine right now, places like Bangladesh and Syria and South Sudan, where there's huge humanitarian needs. Right at this present point, we've started a 5-year project with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade called Heranga Tautakura, which means a thriving life. And that is the goal of it, that everyone will have a life which is a thriving one, where they're not just scraping through, but they're having a good life. And that particular program is running in 7 countries, which you can see there. And most of them are found in our neck of the woods, in our neighborhood in the Pacific or sort of Southeast Asia. So the communities we're working with generally are facing a number of these challenges that you can see on the screen here, and they are all intricately connected. So, you know, we have conflict and drought and maybe displacement and corruption. It will lead to other issues like a lack of access to water or land rights being taken on. Maybe you're going to be insecure with your food access. Maybe your job has been lost, you don't have an income. They're all very much linked, and we find that most of the communities we're supporting will be facing a number of these needs because they're all connected. So, you know, your assessment is very much looking at how social action, you know, the work of Caritas, if you like, is derived or underpinned by a lot of these Catholic social teaching principles, ethical principles, values, Catholic values, depends on the way you want to term them, but we call them CST principles. And the work of Caritas, you know, we have a mission and we have values in our statement. Our values that we live by are actually the Catholic social teaching principles. And so these sort of things are the things that we're trying to enact, and we tend to in our daily workings, if you like. So you'll notice that human dignity is at the center of this all. It's all about human dignity. It's making sure that we remember that we're all children of God and that we have been sort of given this sort of inherent dignity because of that. And so everyone has value, have equal value, and we should always be respecting people because they are children of God. We don't look at people as just numbers and figures and people that can be helped. No, we work together and we see them as, you know, real humans with great value. And so all of these other CST principles will come from that. And so you have things like participation in the top corner there, which is all about making sure that one, we all participate, but also that we enable everyone else to participate as well. The common good is about, I guess, coming together and making sure that no one is left behind. We're not looking out for just one person's needs, we're looking out for everyone. So it's both making sure individuals as well as everyone together is covered. Distributive justice, it used to be known as, or still is, the universal destination of goods. So making sure that resources are shared amongst the whole human race. So making sure that everyone has equal access to resources and that people don't miss out again. The preferential option for the poor and vulnerable, very much about making sure that the needs of the most vulnerable, those who are struggling, are put first. And that's your priority. You put it as your preference. So sometimes above yourself. And so it means that some people that don't have, you know, food or water or healthcare, or they don't have shelter, we look after them because we know that they are going to struggle. Stewardship is about making sure that we are caring for God's creation, be it, you know, people or the environment. We're making sure that we are being great stewards of God's creation. Solidarity is about working together and recognizing that we're all part of this global family. We are one big global family, and we have brothers and sisters, but they might be, you know, on the other side of the world. And so we walk with people and we work with people and we go side by side. It's not a case of pushing people to do things or dragging people. We actually do it together. Promotion of peace is very much obviously making sure there's no conflict, but also making sure that people are living in harmony with one another. Subsidiarity is that strange one to say, but subsidiarity is linking in with participation to some extent. It's all about making sure that everyone is empowered, that they have a voice, and that decisions are made at the appropriate level, so at the lowest possible level. It's not a case of leaders telling people what to do. It's a case of those that are affected by decisions are the ones that are making the decisions. And that is very much how our development projects will work through the long-ranging terms that they run for. So there's a bit of a snapshot summary of CST principles. You guys already know that, no worries at all. But let's have a look at how Caritas is living out those principles. So we've got 9 examples, one for each of those CST principles. And we'll start with human dignity again. So as I said before, it's not a case of just helping people and ticking it off and then moving on and looking for the next need. Human dignity is about really valuing people at their heart and seeing them as people that we can connect with and learn from. It's not a case of us knowing everything, but quite often we are learning and we are inspired by the very people that we are working with or partnering with. So the example here is from Fiji. So this image was actually taken after Cyclone Winston, which is quite a few years ago now. And the team that were coming through and supporting the communities that had lost a lot, like we're talking about a Category 5 cyclone that had pretty much flattened buildings and destroyed a lot of the crops that were being grown and the trees around the area and stuff like that. The teams were coming in and they were meeting with people. They weren't just delivering tarpaulins and leaving and sort of moving on to the next place and then doing the same. They were coming to see people and talking with them and finding out how they were doing and checking out what it was like. And there's a bit of that sort of counselling and trauma discussions, which is part the psychosocial counselling, I think they term it. That's very much part of the work of Caritas, and that happens all throughout the world where people have been scarred. It's that sort of counselling and making sure people are all right, talking with them, listening to what they have to say, and really valuing them and seeing them as children of God. And so that's a great example of human dignity. In this particular case, this man's name is Petero, and I believe her name was Mary, sort of testing out my memory a bit. But Mary had lost her rosary beads, and her faith was so important to her. And rather than Petero just sort of saying, hi, oh gosh, it's been tough for you, and giving her tarpaulin and maybe some water and food and stuff, he listened to what she said and he actually went away and he actually managed to get a new set of rosary beads that had been blessed by someone super important. And he then came back and gave it to her. And to her, that really showed amazing love and generosity that Petero had heard her and cared for her and met her needs and really understood where she was coming from, understand what was important to her. That's human dignity. And that's a really cool example. This example here comes from Bangladesh, and this is for solidarity. So, we talked about solidarity is about, being side by side and working together, understanding we're part of that big family. So this particular image comes from the camp, which is very large in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, which is housing, I think, more than 1 million refugees from the Rakhine state, the Rohingya people from Myanmar. And they were persecuted and had to flee into Bangladesh as refugees a number of years ago. and they're still there, and they're living in very, very tight communities with very sort of basic structures, which they have actually been part of the building themselves. That was part of the subsidiarity side of things. And this particular woman, her role for Caritas Bangladesh is to go around and I think just connect with communities and make sure they're all right. And so she's very much taking time to just be with them, sit with them and listen to them. And that is very much about solidarity. Of course, at the moment, one of the biggest humanitarian crises right now is in the Ukraine with the invasion of Russian forces. It's been happening for the last few weeks now. And already, just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the number of people, mainly women and children, being forced to flee the country and to move into parts of Europe, Poland and Moldova and Hungary, on the sort of western edge of Ukraine, to get away from the fighting. And it's been crazy. We've seen more than, I think, 2.5 million was the number I saw just this morning, have already had to leave, and they're expecting that number to possibly double in the coming weeks. And so in terms of the preferential option for the poor and vulnerable, this is it. Some of the most vulnerable people on the planet are people that have lost everything. They've had to leave their homes, leave their country, leave their family and their friends. In some cases, most cases for these families, their husband or their father or their brothers, and they are moving into completely uncharted, unknown, scary territory, and always thinking about those they're leaving behind. This is where Caritas is coming in. And so there's two main Caritas agencies in Ukraine. There's Caritas Spes, which actually, if you translate it, it means love and hope. And there's Caritas Ukraine. And those two organizations are currently helping people to stay in emergency shelters underground. So they're using their facilities, or so it's, I guess, rescue centers. They are helping people who are still in the country but can't leave, people like elderly or those who are disabled, and they're giving them medical supplies and food. But a lot of it is happening in terms of the humanitarian side in these camps to care for those who are becoming refugees. And so also the neighboring Caritas agencies like Caritas Poland are trying to ensure that they give resources to those once they cross the border. And so this is very much the preferential option. We're putting the needs of those first because they are in dire need. It's not saying, gosh, that's terrible and forgetting all about it. It's actually making sure that you are caring for them because they are in dire need. And that is happening right throughout Ukraine and in those neighboring countries on the western side. Common good. So a great example of the common good is in Papua New Guinea. One of the things that Caritas has been doing in Papua New Guinea is we partner with communities in the New Guinea Islands. This particular community are those in, I think, Bitakara in West New Britain. And previously they were sourcing water at a stream, which was quite a walk away, and that water wasn't always that clean. They were cleaning their bodies as well as getting water to bring back for drinking and stuff. Now these massive rain collection tanks, water tanks, have been distributed amongst the communities, and they're doing a great job, and they're very, very local for everyone to benefit from, making sure no one misses out. And I guess harnessing the power of nature. Another great example for a CST principle is this example from Kiribati, and we see here some great faces, some great smiles of the Caritas Kiribati youth group. They're wearing the same t-shirt that I'm wearing for the Caritas Challenge, and these guys are great. They're always high energy and super cool. And one of the members of this youth group. He's not actually in that image there. These are the leaders. He is a youth leader himself, Bore Moa. He has a riddle which he explains to the communities that they visit in all the islands of Kiribati. And the riddle says, who is the owner of this land? One of the tasks that the Caritas Kiribati youth group is around climate change and adapting the way in which we live and the way in which we farm and the way we use soil. And they're all about making sure that we protect the coastline and we plant mangroves. And they plant mangroves all around the coastline to stop sea level rise and to strengthen the very edge of the coast so it doesn't erode when the waves come in. And so when he says, who is the owner of this land? People say, oh, well, you know, my family, or, you know, our relatives or ancestors, or it might be God, or it might be the government, or, you know, the police or whatever. And he says, no, they're all wrong. They're always wrong. He says, the true owners of this land is the next generation, because those are the people that are going to inherit what we are living on, this land. And so stewardship is all about thinking of a way in which we are responsible for protecting and caring for our environment and the people that live in our environment. And so that's a great reminder that, you know, we have amazing gifts that God has given to us, and we have to look after them. And those gifts take, obviously, different shapes and look a bit different. Distributive justice. A great example of this comes from Cambodia. We work with Indigenous farmers in the northeastern provinces of Cambodia, Ratanakiri and Mundulkiri, and you can see some of them in this image here. And the way they operate, because many of them are very, very close to the poverty line. Some of them are under the poverty line. And life can be very difficult, especially when you have droughts and when you have the impacts of climate change. And so they work as cooperatives. So they share resources. They share the tractors and the seeds and things which, you know, Caritas has been part of supplying through the organization DPA, Development and Partnership in Action in Cambodia. But they also share like the storage sheds for these, you know, seeds and things. So when it comes to planting your seeds, it's not a case of, oh no, I don't have enough this season. It's actually, okay, well, here we go. This is all of our community's seed, and we're going to now distribute it fairly. So you all get some. So even though, you know, this family might have put in a lot more, we're all sharing it out. So everyone will benefit from this. We share the profits, we'll share the costs. And that is a great way of making sure that resources are shared fairly. And that's a really cool example. Participation, we're going back to Fiji for this one. We support a rural training centre in Tutu on Taveuni Island, which is quite isolated in Fiji. And it's it's quite world renowned actually, this rural training centre, for the way in which it operates. But some of the students there are sort of, what would you say, older youth, so sort of university age or even early 20-year-olds. They go through courses, and so there's a married couples course, and there's a young men's course and a young woman's course, and they learn particular skills. And so the women there learn different skills to make handicrafts and things like that, and how to manage finances. And the men equally learn how to, you know, manage finances and things. And they also get to learn how to build houses. And so some of these youth, they don't always have a great outlook. They perhaps have had a troubled upbringing. And so this gives them hope. And so they are enabled to participate again in society through these courses, to then go and do something which is going to support the community. And so by building a house, people will be able to live there. They will be able to live there. And that's quite enabling opportunity. It's a great thing for them, and it brings them back in to be able to participate. Subsidiarity, great example of this is in Timor-Leste. We support a women's cooperative group called Hafote. There's about 500 members, I think. And these women do amazing things. They are very, very talented. Timor-Leste is a very young country. I don't think it's even 2 decades old. And so it has a very light or growing infrastructure, and there aren't a huge number of jobs, and so it can be tough to gain a sort of a regular income. So these women, as I said, are very skillful, and they create their own sort of entrepreneurial businesses. They come up with ideas on products that they can create, and they use local products, whether it's coconuts or bananas, and they make banana chips and coconut oil and soy milk. They do amazing weaving. They sell rice, peppercorns, cloves, you name it. They sell it probably. And it's all about them being empowered and coming up with the ideas. And they have small loans that are given to them. And then from these loans, they will then, put down the capital outlay and maybe buy a machine, or they will share the machines and use them in some of the production centers which have been built. And from that, they will then gain the income, pay back the loan, and then that money that they're gaining after that will go to help their families and make sure their kids go to school. And so they are making the decisions. It's all them. And groups like Caritas are just in the background supporting them and making sure that they have what they need, and providing guidance and things like that. So amazing individuals, the Hafote women of Timor-Leste. And then we see one of the CST principles was promotion of peace as well. And so in places like Ukraine we talked about, but also South Sudan, which had a lot of fighting for almost a decade now, where the country has been very scarred by this. Things like peacemaking and opening up dialogue and allowing groups to talk with one another and come up with an idea of how they can come to an agreement. It's something which Caritas is involved in, especially in South Sudan. It's not a massive part of what Caritas does, but in some instances it is possible. And South Sudan is a great example of this promotion of peace. So hopefully from those 9 examples, you can see the work of Caritas, both Caritas Aotearoa New Zealand and also the global Caritas Internationalis. And you can see how those CST principles are right at the very core of the work of Caritas, and it underpins everything that we do. I hope that you have learnt a little bit about that. As I said before, if you have anything that you want to ask specifically about any of those countries or the projects, or look at a particular CST principle and you're still a bit unclear about it, you can get in touch with us. We can't write your assessment for you, but we can answer any questions you have. So if you have any questions, send it through to education@caritas.org.nz, and we'd love to talk with you more about that or provide a bit more information. And in some cases, we might be able to send through a video or a link to a site where you might be able to get more information. So talking about sites, here is the Caritas Aotearoa New Zealand website. It's just changed in the last couple of weeks, so it looks a bit different if you've been here before, but you could use this to find out more information about us. So if you want to find out about any of the things we talked about in terms of the mission, the people we're working with, there's even some information on CST there, which might be useful for your assignment, your assessment, as well as some of the things we talked about with development and education, and some of those countries we were working. If you want to look for some more resources, especially around education, then you'll find those along here. Social Justice Week from 2020, I'd say that's a good place to start. That does link in with each of the CST principles. So click on there, go into 2020, you'll find it. And I know that some of you might be thinking about how you can support the work of Caritas. Then that's super easy. I think I'm covering it up with the button there. But if you go to Donate Now, which is just up here, then you can donate that way too. And if you're ever trying to find out more information, then you can easily just contact us and we can get in touch. But yeah, all the best for your assessment, and we hope that goes well. Hopefully you learn lots, and all the best. All right, see you later.